Welcome, everyone, to today's panel titled Mainstreaming the Future of Phygital, Simplifying Interactive Personalized Commerce. For those of you that remember Olivia Newton-John, I think in short it'd be called Let's Get Phygital. I am pleased to have two distinguished panelists today, and I'll let them introduce themselves and talk about their focus. Diana?
Thanks so much, Ray. My name is Deanna Sheehan, and I lead the Metaverse consulting practice for In Context Solutions. We have been in the virtual reality space for over a decade, utilizing digital twins of real estate assets paired with consumer insights to help companies make decisions about what changes to make in store in real time, utilizing virtual shopping behavior as the path to ensure and understand what sales kind of looks like as things happen in the physical world and how you can mitigate risk in what you do in that space. So what we do today is, while we continue to really use virtual reality as a way to better understand shopper insights, we are taking that same knowledge and applying it to the concept of virtual commerce and what that means, not only from a e-commerce space, but also from a metaverse space. So currently what we know is that everybody shops online in some way, but they also like shopping in store. The idea of virtual commerce really takes this idea of the digital twin of a physical store or something that doesn't exist in real life and creates a transformative, immersive experience for virtual shopping online today.
Great. So obviously I have a pure expert on digital commerce, so that's fantastic. Tommaso, which I think you sometimes go by T, can you fill us in on your...
No, right on. Thank you so much, Ray. Very excited to be here. Nice to meet you, Diana. My name is T or Tommaso, based out of the Silicon Valley Bay Area. I've been working on solving problems as an entrepreneur since 2001. Launched last year my fifth startup. I had two exits. I am part of UC Berkeley as a faculty, where I have the pleasure to learn with the students all things about entrepreneurship and Web3. You heard correctly, I'm not teaching, I'm learning with them, because you cannot teach students, right? So I focus on the space of Web3. I'm a 2 times author. The second book that I released last year, early 2022, is called Navigating the Metaverse, which I co-authored with Kathy Hackle and Dirk Lute. I'm part of the advisory board or 5 distinctive companies in the VR AR space. And last year, after digging into the topic of physical digital, I launched Phygital without the vowels. What we do is we connect the physical and the digital world by focusing really on students and brands. We thought, what if students can gamify whatever they see around them? So whatever daily interaction that we do today, you eat, you study, you run, whatsoever, right? What if we make it more fun, right? So we lay a layer of interaction on top of this, let's say, static world. We gamify that. Some of you out there have been saying, a form of Pokemon Go, but by connecting with the real physical world, right? And then the result of this interaction is that they all together, so collaborative, they can compose a new form of digital assets that they can place as an augmented reality in real life. And this placement of this digital asset, so think of it like almost like a digital graffiti, if you so want, right, is co-created and is based on affinity. So it's only discoverable through others that have a very similar affinity. So think of a group that is in knitting, and they will only find things that are around knitting around them, right? And so they can basically interact with, rather than a browser, with things that they have around them. Yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell about myself.
Very impressive, both of you. My name is Ray Khan. I will be the moderator today. I am also the founder of XPED Inc. XPED owns Industry Essential, NFC, IoT, TAP patents, and the Show Me platform that serves as the last mile between digital ecosystems and the internet, with no intermediaries, no friction, no confusion. Show Me provides brands direct-to-consumer capabilities that they presently lack or find extremely expensive to get. Consumers tap their mobile phones on NFC-enabled products and seamlessly receive and manage loyalty rewards, promotional offerings, branded videos, and peer-to-peer payments. We believe XPED will allow mainstream adoption of digital commerce by making it much easier and less confusing and less expensive for all users by pretty much getting it onto mobile devices. So hopefully the three of us can give a very good overview of how we see the digital commerce and what Deanna calls virtual commerce, which is excellent. I think we first should address the current status of the industry. So I think many people view, maybe not the participants today, but many people view digital assets solely as colorful, creative NFTs or tokenized assets that a lot of people talk about, tokenizing real estate and all this type of stuff, but are really not very common and commonly used yet. Do you agree with my view that digital assets take many forms: videos, music, loyalty, rewards, promotions, experiences? I'll leave that to both of you.
Well, I can jump in. I can tell you from our side, we look at digital assets in a much broader and more comprehensive kind of view, taking it beyond things that kind of the everyday individual at their home uses and starting to look at it more from a commercial perspective as you think of companies and how they utilize digital assets. So for us, there is a wealth of digital asset activity in the digital twin space. So as you think about taking existing physical assets beyond products and moving into things like recreating your local grocery store or your local spa, and then finding ways to gamify it and plan within that, but also to test ideas and see how they work among your consumers. As we think of digital assets, we look at things like displays in stores and how you can take those and create them in virtual reality and then utilize them using tools like augmented reality to be able to plan on how best to place those in a physical store in a limited space or engage with each other in kind of different ways. For us, even just this idea of thinking about going to any store that you can think of from a commercial perspective and creating shoppable 3D assets of those products and interacting with them becomes an opportunity, but also an asset that can be commercialized within the commercial space for both digital commerce, but also in kind of planning and engaging and being able to predict how people would engage with those same assets in a physical store.
Fantastic. T?
I guess that, the word itself, digital asset, right? Or we have been kind of focusing on that or paying more attention since 2001 when this acronym and non-fungible token came on the market, right? We have seen a big acceptance from a specific target audience, right? That we all at the beginning were kind of confused to say, okay, why actually is this a rise happening, right? If you look at Google Trends, this actual word non-fungible token or NFT, right, went from zero known knowledge, right, or zero acceptance on the market to 100% distribution on the Google search as an SEO, right? And the premier target audience that were kind of tied to this were really investors that wanted to diversify their portfolio based on what that very specifically decentralized asset was offering as a benefit, which was a financial benefit, right? Many of us have connected that benefit or have tried to connect benefits such as a collective benefit. So it drifted into the art space, which is a beautiful one, right? And I definitely think that collecting arts, going from a physical art into digital art is very valuable, right? But if you really measure the shares of how many are art collectors in the world, right, it's already a very small percentage. So all this to say that we are in an early beginnings of us reinterpreting value creation for digital assets, right, that might be decentralized or might not be decentralized. I absolutely echo what Diana is saying, right? In the commerce space, right, even not decentralized digital assets, they could achieve a purpose or can achieve a purpose of a personalization through an additional layer on top of the real world. As a matter of fact, we slash I myself, I'm heading up right now a United States wide research with the students across 30 campuses of the United States, where we are trying to analyze how is the behavior being shaped and changing when this next generation, it's not us most probably using it a lot, right? It's the next gen building. How are they really changing their behavior when they are immersed within one of those digital assets, right? So far we have always considered digital assets of you obtaining it, using it, right? With NFT and ownership, you could always also say swapping it, selling it, right? So you have an additional layer of rights that you have, which is amazing. It's going to change a lot, right? But with immersiveness, right? We are now talking about really a behavioral shift. You're talking about you being at the center of that asset, right? And how do you feel about that? How are you going to react when you could swap or wear things or compose things in front of you, when you are in the midst of this digital asset, when you are in the midst of this experience? So digital asset is no longer for you to have it as an inventory, right? Or just to have it basically as an asset that increases its value, right? But it's something that impacts all your senses, right? It impacts that you are looking at it. It looks at you, so it will redefine the KPIs on what it means and what the value is creation with that. It can maybe in the near future also impact you because you're immersed, and we have an additional layer of smell that it has, right? I've seen innovation that goes in that direction, right? So I think that the digital asset is a beautiful early stage phase that is changing truly the definition of what is the value that we are providing to this next generation. And I think it would be almost limited if you think that digital asset, as Ray was introducing it, is understood as a ownership-oriented asset, that it has the intention of having a financial benefit, right? It goes way beyond that.
I think if you can hear in our voices the potential and the excitement of everything that we're working on in digital space, and everyone that's probably listening in the digital space. So one more question on the status quo, and then we can talk about the exciting of the very soon future. I think there's been limits and constraints on how far digitization has gotten so far. And T says that we're in the early stages, and you often hear that. I was just going to list, I think, four constraints right now, and I think they're fixable. One, the complexity and fragmentation of the digital ecosystem. Two, the cost of the ecosystem, which often people call walled gardens, available only to large and expensive projects. The difficulty currently of supporting low cost and mass market tokens or digital assets, i.e. tokens with values, let's say 1 cent. And then finally, the lack of understanding and trust in digital. So do you agree that those are the sort of the hindrance, or are there other things that need to be fixed?
I think as I look at our clients who tend to not necessarily be in the physical space and tend to be more corporate, what we see as the biggest challenge really is that investment in the assets themselves, but kind of this idea of centralized versus decentralized. Who owns that library? How is it being used? What are the purposes? I think one of the biggest things we've seen within the corporate space is as we've talked to them about their digital asset strategy is really, are those assets able to be used in multiple ways for multiple reasons? And sometimes I think, again, as you go from corporate adoption of digital assets, and whether that's training and development, which can be fully immersive, to test and learn, and in essence, risk mitigation, and those serving different purposes, they're often kind of managed in different areas of a company. And what we know with large companies is generally functions don't talk well to each other. And so you create this situation in which you have digital assets that may not have a value in the same way that we think about NFTs and things like that, but are still assets that have been invested in but are not being shared across the organization and really kind of communicated out, and thus are not transitioned to the other methods of utilization that can drive value for a company. We actually just fielded a study around a number of companies within the retail and consumer packaged goods space. And one of the biggest things that we saw is we actually asked people at different levels if their current company utilized virtual assets today. And what we found is senior leadership often said that they weren't using virtual reality, but the managers and directors in the same companies said that they were. And so there's an interesting dynamic in that digital asset space that when they are being used tactically for both strategic and tactical purposes, right? Strategically for planning, for training and development, to evolve kind of how people learn within an organization, they may still be being utilized in a way that isn't being communicated to upper level management. And thus you're not getting the support that you should to build and grow in that space. That I think creates a tremendous opportunity. And I know I'm not answering your question exactly, but I think fine. I'm getting at it. It's a different, I think that's the pieces where we sit is a slightly different lens, but it still speaks to those challenges from a digital asset perspective, and how you really can start to turn the scales and bring something and making it much more ubiquitous across the industry outside of the more kind of classic metaverse space.
Is that a generational age thing or tech savvy thing, or is it not definable?
It really, that's actually been the interesting thing is in the work, and I'm literally digging through the data right now, it doesn't seem to be tied to age. It's tied to function. Regardless of age, you see respondents within the insights and the sales functions being actually much more likely to explore and adopt and recognize what virtual reality and digital assets are being used for. In other functions, you're seeing it less called out, in part because potentially it stays within the IT function of corporations and things like that.
Pete, do you remember the question, or is that just what the?
No, I want to lean in into this. Yes, thanks for asking, Ray. I do, even though my brain is not on a blockchain. Right? Yeah. So. I believe that I was just reflecting on why actually are we putting emphasis on this word digital assets, right? Because a digital asset, what we are actually seeking, in my point of view, is utility for a new form of engagement, right? Which you have a vehicle for, and that's a digital asset / it's actually more than a digital asset, it's an experience, right? So because if allow me to zoom out, what are we trying here to do? I think we have seen enough pics and enough videos. These are digital assets too. Let's not forget it, right? So what we are seeking is actually to solve a problem. What is actually the problem that we are trying to solve? The problem is that every brick, a brand, and any consumer, that's a two-sided problem, right? We are living in a new era. This era goes from, the original digital media goes into becomes social media, now becomes immersive media, right? And this next generation has expectations of having a more gamified and an immersive way of interacting, right? Because they were raised interacting in a more gamified way and an immersive way. Gamified means not gamers, right? As a matter of fact, if you ask most of this Gen Z, are you a gamer? The answer, no. Just a smaller amount says that they are gamer. But if you ask them if they love gamified aspect, they say yes, right? So gamification is really a trigger-based activity, a series of trigger-based activities that motivates them to do so. So it's still responding to the question, well, what problem are we solving? On one hand, there is this Gen Z that is disenchanted by social media. The reason for that is because social media became nothing than just a medium of entertainment and no longer of engagement. And this causes a side reaction, which is massive. We see the numbers on Facebook and on Google over the last years, and revenues going down at the core of their revenue ads business at the 90% still on the Google side. If you look in the forecast, right, and no longer will be going at double digits. So what is here the problem? The problem we're trying to solve is engagement. and the engagement is solved through a new experience, and the experience has digital assets within it, right? Now, if we take and consider this line of reasoning, then the other thought process that I want to share here is, well, are we trying to rebuild the same, again, behavior and lead the traffic to a browser? As a matter of fact, the future of the internet, that is my claim, will no longer be limited by either a browser or a screen. And actually, if we do it correctly, we live already in this immersive world. We only need to toggle it on through a layer of additional information, which is augmented reality. You see indicators here, like just the major brands, the Facebook of this world, the Apple's releasing the hardware. On the software side, we have, developers that have 3D tools that allow us now to very fastly and quickly and affordably to build these new assets / experiences, put these assets within the experiences around us. So I believe that the future really of engagement will no longer I drive traffic to a location. The future of engagement will be I can engage and interact anywhere, anytime. But if we do it correctly, I'm not engaging and my world will be polluted around me, but artificial intelligence will become basically the filter that will create the bespoke experiences around us. So if I have interacted with a series of food-related topics, knitting, car-related topics, right? I will be only having experiences that are highly customized and bespoke based on artificial and so filtered, right? So I think we will be reducing screen time because no screen time. We'll be reducing content. We'll be highly focused on what we do. And then last but not least, the beauty of immersiveness will allow us actually to avoid it's a dilemma today, right? Today, we spend a lot of money still from a budget perspective, marketing, into ads, because there are no real medium that have shown traction in terms of return of investment when it comes to customer acquisition costs and cost per clicks, right? But we will be having a medium which I cannot swipe away, right? So the moment that I toggle on an immersive experience around me that is bespoke to me, I'm in a moment where I'm enjoying and I'm looking around and say, okay, this is what it is. So I cannot swipe through it, right? So this will change also the entire KPI landscape on how we are going to measure actually the dollars that we are going to spend. So, responding to your question directly, Ray, digital asset, yes, amazing, but to live within an experience. Where is the experience? How am I getting access to the experience? I think these are fundamental things that we all together are shaping.
I mean, wow, that's like so much beyond me. You guys are both, very big thinkers. I will admit I was a long time traditional finance guy, right? So I think very analytically and how do we get things to work? And you guys are thinking much broader and bigger. So I'm going to actually say, someone told me this last week. They told me the metaverse is Gen X mobile phone, right? And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. My parents struggled with mobile phones, as did a lot of their generation. And I, the only Gen X on the screen right now, sometimes feel unsure and uncomfortable in the metaverse and the virtual world that you just explained to me. How are we going to get the world so that the metaverse is not Gen X's mobile phone? You want to go first?
I think that I love this question. It's a new innovation cycle that we are tapping into, right? But similar to what happened 25 years ago, early beginnings of 2001, and for those listeners out there and here in our Zoom call, right? You guys might remember the ICQs midst of the mid 90s, right? Diana, remember ICQ, remember Friendsters, right? By the way, we are conveying kind of our age, but okay. So dismiss that for a second. These were early adopters that were very relevant for a period of time, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? These are pioneers that really created a new monetization model, new behavior, right? A beautiful story a friend of mine told me, that on MySpace, he actually met his wife. And MySpace had a beginning and MySpace has an end. But what those players did, they really paved the market for what then become, the Facebook, the YouTube, the Instagram, and the bloggers and whatnot, the LinkedIns of this world, right? Where I want to go with this is that we are at this early beginning of this innovation phase. So we are all pioneers. We have early adopters. There might be a couple of players out there. There might be, more pulsing and doing more stuff, but maybe it's an ICQ, maybe it's a Friendster. Like, I don't think that we have defined really a new business model. I don't think that we've truly defined a new value creation. We are all seeking it, right? As a matter of fact, every single investment that we are seeing, if you analyze most of the Web3 investment, decentralized investment, have been primarily done in infrastructure layer, which is very typical for an innovation cycle that you invest in infrastructure. But we are still now seeking all this killer application. What is this killer application, right? Who is taking, the Web3 into the multi-billions? We are definitely not taking the Web3 into the multi-billions by approaching them and forcing them down to have a wallet. We are definitely not taking the multi-billions into Web3 by saying you have to have tokens. That's not going to happen. It's not also going to happen.
Sorry to interrupt. Don't you have to stair step it, because you're taking a huge leap, right?
You have to take them where they are. Absolutely agree, right? You have to take and tap into Web 2 behaviors, create core loop mechanics, right, that are pleasant in the Web 2, meaning what they know, and then steer them into Web 3 as features, as benefits, not as features. You don't say create a wallet, but say, why should you create a wallet? What is the huge benefit? And it's not a financial, it's not an extrinsic motivation that we should imply on our user, right? Because otherwise we talk only to very transactional users, right?
But you have to make creating the wallet and maintaining the wallet simpler than it is right now, correct?
Absolutely,
because you take Nike and Artifact, who are probably viewed as some of the biggest leaders in both the technology, the creative design, and clicks on it. It's very complex. I went in, I to buy the digital shoe with the NFC tag, I had to get an app. I got tired, I got confused, and I felt insecure and stupid. So I don't want that, but I do want to participate in the digital cool stuff, right? So I want to come home and tell my kids, I bought these Nikes, and right now I buy them, and I want them to say, Dad, those cool shoes are cool, or you look like I don't want them to say you look like a dork, but I don't want to bring home an NFC based shoe, right, and then not be able to use it, right? And so that's what we're dealing with right now. So I still will go that people like Tomas and the students or the people around the country are going to make this better, but I do think we have to step to it, because there's the most creative, which are you people, right? And there's me, like, finance guys that want to do it, but need to figure out how. Diana?
Well, I think that's where, with full transparency, that's where we sit currently, is it's the idea of that stair step. So I think your example is a perfect example. I actually have I have two teenagers and live in this world of anything I say, I get laughed at because it's not exactly where it's supposed to be. At the core of this, what is happening is there are unique, specific experiences that bridge the gap between this idea of between that kind of metaverse experience, virtual and physical. And what happens is, I think, as you look in this adoption cycle, particularly from a generational perspective, seeing successful executions of that stair step are going to be the key to starting to get people more comfortable as the technology, because with mobile phones, part of the problem was the technology was clunky in the very beginning. As you think about MySpace and Friendster, those things were things that fit specific audiences, but really didn't become adopted at a large level until something like Facebook came into play. And that was because of how they tackled meeting people where they were at. Right now, what we're seeing, and there's actually a phenomenal example from a few years back of Chipotle playing in the metaverse, right? I knew Chipotle was playing in the metaverse because my 10-year-old boy at the time came and said, Mom, I got a burrito from Fortnite. Can you take me to Chipotle so I can get my free burrito that I just won in Fortnite, right? You had Forever 21 coming out and creating skins, including this really adorable beanie that my daughter could buy for her avatar in Fortnite. And then she found out you could buy that same beanie at Forever 21 in real life, and they managed to sell it, right? Those are simple experiences that bridge the gap and then make them a little more understandable, accessible to anyone, everywhere. But when you then move to where other people are starting to move, so right now you have examples of virtual shopping experiences, which is where we play today. And they're really through they are cloud-based, they are web browser-based, but they take the average person and allow them to shop virtually for things without moving it into that fully immersive experience. So it's that step in a way that is comfortable. So Corona had this great experience that they launched in March with, in essence, a virtual clubhouse experience for the PGA golf tournament, right? It was in a clubhouse. You walked in, you could walk up to a bar. It's all done off the browser. It was a unique experience it wasn't truly customized, but it was customized to a specific audience that wouldn't normally shop that way. And what they did, it allowed you to engage with the different types of beers in a virtual bar. It allowed you to walk to the clubhouse store and buy different types of merchandise that potentially could be sent to you, or you could just buy it and kind of engage or play with it. But it created it basically created that entry point into virtual for the average consumer who wouldn't have touched it on their own. And you see more and more companies, both companies that are retailers today, but also companies that are looking at exploring direct to consumer sales when they've normally done through retail, find ways to connect through virtual shopping experiences or virtual experiences that are used to educate. And it started honestly way back in, I think, 2019 when Sam's Club created the virtual Christmas store that basically created a digital twin of the National Lampoon's Christmas Story house with Clark Griswold. But then they were selling things at Sam's Club through that store for your home and then shipping it. So it's one of those where I think it's going to be done in a number of different ways. And I do think the stair-step piece is imperative to making this work. But I think in some places, what you're going to have is you're going to have two paths along this journey, right? And you're going to have the Gen Z and younger consumers jump a step straight into those fully immersive experiences that are gamified because they have been there along the journey all along. And then you're going to have some of us that are older. And I will fully admit, Ray, I am right on the border. I am technically
No, you're not. I looked it up and you're not there. I can tell you're not there. So,
but it's like for us, we're going to stair step, but we're going to get there. It may not work for our parents as you go into that boomer phase. And I say that thinking of how my daughter refers to me as boomer when she's mad at me. But I think in essence, it's going to be it's this generational phase where for some of us, it will be stair step. And we'll see the exact same thing in the corporate space, right? You're going to see larger firms that are tending to be risk averse, explore different avenues, but not jump in fully. And then you'll see more innovative firms that are willing to take a chance, jump into the space in a more creative way. And I think you'll see it both in the commerce space, but I think more importantly, where you're really going to see this make a difference is in planning in the manufacturing space and then in training development, particularly for those that interact with customers one-on-one, because that gamified experience of utilizing kind of digital assets and digital experiences paired with things like augmented reality in real life will actually go and create better and more effective ways to train employees in a cost-effective manner.
Yeah, so I think Diana and I are going to basically be the stair steps, and then we're going to step into T's like unbelievable world that he can envision and I can't even envision yet. So I spend a lot of time with XPED trying to figure out how I make experiences that are usable by myself and everything. So I'm just going to show you one thing. Now, we all have phones, right? And we all use our phones really about 5% of the time. The rest of the time, it's an Internet Explorer. It's a remote control for the internet, right? There's 250 million phones in the US. There's 6 billion phones in the globe. I've created this concept called reversing the digital paradigm, which I was feeling bad about, that I was thinking too small when T was talking about think bigger. But now I'm coming back to it. And reversing the digital paradigm is rather than requiring mainstream users to jam into the digital ecosystem, deliver the digital items and experiences to the internet where anyone with a phone or a mobile device can access it. So that I think is key. whether, and I think you guys have explained that. That's really stair stepping. To do so, and I'm going to ask you guys about digital experiences in the metaverse. I'm just going to quickly show this, which is probably hard to see, right? But this is XPED. This is basically in the screen. I think there's 9 video screen, but the one moving, which is a digital experience, did I miss it? That's the Metaverse Lab created by Journey, the agency Journey. It's for Clinique. They've also made one, I think 2 weeks ago, they released one for Macy's, and they have a very successful one for H&M. What we have done using our technology is built that in that you can get that with a tap on your phone, right? So I'm not good. I as soon as Macy's and Journeys announced that, I went into the metaverse, right? And I signed up, and I have an avatar, and I haven't figured out how to get into the store yet. I'm walking around 34th Street, right? Now that's me. That's not the designers. It's beautiful, right? But we needed to make it easier. So we have XPED is basically our view is get this in, get this phone. Yes, we have what we call a pocket. It's an encrypted secure wallet that you get immediately. There's no sign up. You just have to basically give a little bit of information. It's fully private. But we can basically bring the digital experiences onto people's phones. And we believe that that is the stair step that is necessary. We can also basically play, like we saw there was Carbone, which is, you guys aren't all in New York, but that's a famous spicy rigatoni Italian restaurant. They actually sell it in stores. Like anyone that wants to promote can directly promote to anyone who has these pockets. So we believe that XPED and others in the space are doing things to create this, I hadn't used this word before, but stair-stepped digital physical event. So I think that's fantastic. So when you look at, and T and Diana, when you see these metaverse experiences from Journey and other companies, how is it going to be that we can basically create the connective tissue that allows those to become part of most people's daily experience? Because right now, I don't believe they are. But how do they become more part of the daily experience, the daily shopping, the daily entertainment, the daily combined digital, physical, digital life? T?
Yeah, thanks for sharing this. Kudos, Ray. Thanks, intriguing. I absolutely believe that every innovation phase takes early adopters, and then we mature into the next phase of the more mature adoption before we hit I think there is never the right there is never the right moment for innovation, right? It's either too early or too late, right? So it's either before Apple announced the headset and now the new Quests, right? You're saying, oh, AR, right? I don't know, right? But now that we see, oh, wait a second, there are a couple of headsets out there. I mean, I mentioned just 2, but there are a series of hardware providers around the globe, right? It becomes all more tangible. I mean, Diana had a couple of beautiful, very, very, let's say, tangible use cases on the educational, on the training industry, right? On the B2B side of things, right? I think now the big question is really on the consumer side of things. What is going to be one of those applications that really drive a big engagement, right? We have seen, obviously, numbers show that the entire industry of gaming, right, has been having huge adoptions, right? But the question is, again, are we driving traffic to a browser again, right? Are we trying to creating again silos and having a same behavior like we had the last 25 years, right? So I doubt, I don't think that the marketing budgets will be allocated in this direction. I believe to connect the physical and the digital world, you will be having something that is in the retail store all around you. You go to a coffee place, you go to the shopping centers, right? And there will be some point of experience, some triggers, some anchors, right? That take your attention and then make you dive in a funnel strategy into the top of the funnel, that you have a light engagement, right? That doesn't lead you to just a browser, because who wants another link on top of something that we have seen, right? I mean, that's a QR code, right? It doesn't really, is that like what we are maybe
QR
now
codes, I will say, aren't as dynamic. This can basically, if you use tokens and NFC as the trigger point, you can get far more personalized. we can basically not we, but NFC tags can be used to just enter the Clinique counter at the Macy's store to go directly in. QR codes are cool, but they can't go to that level. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just a link, right, Ray? I mean, it connects A with B, right? But then the question is the destination? What is the destination, right? You know, promotional benefits that you know, in game you buy skins, you buy assets, right? They unlock other promotional benefits maybe when you go physical, right? That's, for instance, what we do at Phygital. You know, you have this playful engagement, you compose things, and then within these composed assets, we see those composed assets as open source tools. I don't even call them NFT, right? Because you can bundle those with proportional benefits with other brands that want to offer more local services. Hey, if you do this and you achieve that, you get XYZ at a location, for instance, right? Oh, yes, or for instance, you know, you can even, I mean, this would be more of a physical promotional benefit, but what if, right, you can say you get limited access to information, right, or events, right, so that might be also a next layer of benefiting, you know, and picking them up from where they are in Web2 and their playful engagement, and then doing cross branding, as you were mentioning, right?
Yeah, I think the key, and one of the things I took from that discussion is technology is not the key. The technology exists. The business case, the excitement, the consumer excitement, or the merchant, you know, coming up with something that's really phenomenal. It's the use case and it's the delivery. Technology does exist, right? I will say my experience is, and I'm not the technologist, we have a core group of strong technologists, is the technology is being used very siloed right now. The various technologies are siloed, and the people that figure out how to basically cross brand the technology will be the ones that are going to create the wow experiences. We have about 3 minutes left. I want to leave it to both of you to, you know, spend like a minute, like whatever your closing comments would like to be, and then we're going to open up for 15 minutes for the audience to ask questions. So, Diana?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a larger level, we're going to see adoption. We're going to see that transition from early adopters to the broader kind of implementation across consumer groups as elements of this become more accessible and understandable. I think that word silo, I think both corporately, but from a consumer lens, is still the biggest problem, right? Experiences themselves are right now very intentionally targeted at unique audiences. They are not accessible and really customized, personalized for individuals. So I think as things evolve, AI will create a path for things to become much more customized. I think from a technology space, I think there are all kinds of technologies that make this possible, but I think until we get to a point where everyone knows how to use the technologies they have at home and in hand, it's not going to actually really take that kind of turn to full adoption. And I think right now, particularly as you think of metaverse experiences, things are not interoperable. They are often driven by a technological device, a headset or something, to move off the browser, and those are not accessible for the average home. It's once we get to a point where things truly are accessible, maybe it is through the phone, for everybody that things will move forward.
Great. T?
A resistance of innovation is in the nature of human being, always been, right? Since you know, any kind of innovation, you know, horses and cars, and then, you know, 100 years into it, still resistant of social media, yes or no, and it changed the way it connects us. We are in front of a new innovation era. We are resistant. It'll take us 15, 20 years to have the very fully fledged, seamlessly integrated new category that kind of originally was coined the metaverse, and we all have a different form of interpretation. I believe that, you know, kind of being resistant to a point where I just observe and try to only read and not do anything is very dangerous. You cannot understand innovation on paper. So you need to experiment, mitigate risk and experimentation, but start with whatever is out there, right? Yes, it's ICQ. Yes, it's Friendsters, right? Let's is MySpace. And it might not be there in the future, but you are understanding how the users are behaving. You're understanding new monetization model, new needs, right? So if you want to grow younger, if we want to grow younger as a brand, as a company, right, we need to dig into these new immersive, gamified, and new reward systems that we all are figuring out. And actually the emphasis on all figuring out. The beauty of this new era is that is no longer will the one win who has the deeper pockets, like advertisement. I pay, I get in front of people, and it's reach. Now it's all about doing it together, because there is an expectation from this younger generation to have a voice in whatever is being done, and the technology supports that. Speaking of co-creation, speaking of a new form of creating assets together, creating experiences together, right? Take a look at what Roblox said, right? The new world of creators, for creators to create everywhere, anytime. So we need to switch a mentality. We are doing this together, right? But we cannot just observe. Let's jump into this and humbly learn, one experiment at a time.
Great. And I'll close very quickly. I think you have the metaverse and the virtual and the physical and the tangible, and they're very siloed. So there needs to be a bridge. There needs to be last mile connectivity that's created. There needs to be a utility. And when that utility, that bridge, that last mile is created from various entities, then there can be a migration to true Phygital, which will be a combination of both. And I believe we're making our way to that place. I appreciate everyone, for Diana and T, for participating today. Thanks for On-Stream Media, Excite Digital, the sponsors, and the audience for listening. We're now going to turn it over to some questions. Thank you.